So you're thinking of switching banks, but here's a question before you do. Why do most banks make something so simple, so hard? Why do they make you sign mountains of paperwork, dig up your ID from its hiding place, and complete one of their famously long applications? Why don't they make it as simple as taking a selfie? With the FNB app, you get the simplest way to switch in SA. A selfie. You take a selfie and we'll verify your identity. Paperwork free, queue free, and you can order your check card and schedule your courier delivery all from our app. So download the FNB app and switch to all in your pocket, never in a queue banking, from the only bank that never stops finding new ways to ask, how can we help you? FNB is a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Money Matters.
Joined on the line by Paul Ramara from Spoor and Fisher Attorneys. He is a partner there. And of course, taking your calls, your experiences with either pirated or counterfeit goods, instances where you were sold a good which you thought was legit and the real thing, and it turned out it wasn't. What happened? What was it? On 011-883-0702. Paul, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Welcome to Night Talk.
Thank you. Thank you, Google.
So when we speak about counterfeit goods, I mean, very often we think of clothes, fake handbags, fake shoes, fake, merchandise that you can get pretty much everywhere. There's also the issue, I know SARS is cracking down on this, of contraband tobacco or counterfeit tobacco products. What are some of the other kinds of products which we find to be quite widespread or common in counterfeiting?
So let me first make this general statement, and that is almost anything can be counterfeited. If you're talking about automotive parts, brake pads, they can be counterfeit. Even airplane parts can be counterfeited. Of course, with airplane parts, obviously it's a much more controlled industry, so it's a little bit difficult to obviously supply those parts. But almost anything can be counterfeited.
And how valuable, how much is this industry worth? Because it does function as a kind of industry, or the total number of goods are worth something. Otherwise, people wouldn't be doing them. Do we know how much pirated counterfeit goods are worth, sort of in the world?
Yeah, so it's a global problem that accounts for between 5 to 7% of the world trade. There are studies that in 2022, the value of counterfeiting will reach 2.8 trillion, so US dollar. So it's a huge, huge, huge industry.
And what are some of the challenges then in dealing with counterfeiting? So, there are various global practices in place. You have SARS, for instance, the South African Police Service, Interpol, all seeming to want to work with dealing with counterfeit and pirated products. But it just doesn't seem like they're getting it right. Why can't we seem to get it in hand?
So I have to say this. In South Africa, we are a bit fortunate in the sense that we've got a special legislation to deal with counterfeiting, but that's counterfeiting in the traditional sense. What is challenging is counterfeiting that is taking place in the social media space, which is highly unregulated. So with this, what you'd often have is that you'll have an infringer who runs multiple stores online using different identities. So when you close one store, he knows that there's other stores that would be operating, and that is the challenge. But if you bring dealing with counterfeiting in the traditional sense, where containers come through Durban Harbour, for instance, we do work very closely with customs, which is, of course, the first line of defense in detaining goods at the port of entry. And for anything that goes into the market, we work with the police. At Spoor and Fisher, we have a number of ad hoc investigators that continue to monitor the market. And if they come across suspected counterfeit goods bearing our client's trademarks, will lodge complaints with the South African Police Service and conduct what we call search and seizure operation, or otherwise known as the raid.
There's always a question about, so after those operations, those search and seizure operations, what happens to the goods that are then confiscated?
Eventually, the goods will be destroyed. You will obviously imagine that these goods are of a substandard quality. The real reason why counterfeiters manufacture these goods is really to deceive the consumer, to use as substandard material as possible. So the brand holders cannot afford for these goods to go into the market, because obviously they will cause a lot of brand damage.
And the internet has been quite interesting in how it's fit in, and social media it's fit into the global pirating, counterfeit goods industry. And I mean, in this country, and I guess in other parts of the world, you see people using Instagram as platforms to sell counterfeit goods, and they'll tell you as well, they call them replica goods. Has that made it easier to deal with people who are found selling pirated or fake goods, or has it made it more difficult? Because I would imagine it depends on what you're looking at. In the past, someone would have to set up a store and you could go and raid the store. But now if I'm an individual selling these goods out of my boot or my lounge at home, that might make it a little more difficult?
Yeah, so studies that have been conducted in the social media space has revealed that 20% of Instagram posts for luxury brands feature counterfeit or illicit products. So it is quite easy to sell counterfeit goods on Instagram. Because what would usually happen is that the counterfeiter will use materials that he has obtained from a genuine website. But when he sends you the goods after payment, those goods will be counterfeit. So it's become very easy because, as you might be aware, on the social media space, there won't be any policemen, there won't be any custom officer that's policing that particular space. So it's very easy to run a business online.
And what happens, I mean, what are the implications of being someone who either knowingly or unknowingly buys counterfeit goods? So someone sells you something, they may even price it at the same price as the original, the genuine good, and you purchase it. What happens when you buy counterfeit goods? Where does that money go? There have been discussions over the years about, there's a bigger industry often involving organized crime that counterfeit and pirated goods fits into.
Well, most definitely. What you have is, obviously, if we're talking from a broader national issues, it has impact on the economy. It can lead to job losses and taxes. But beyond that, there are also, as I've said, health and safety issues. And just generally, Interpol has identified counterfeiting as a top 5 priority crime because they are saying that some of the monies that have been made from counterfeiting are used to fund terrorist activities.
Sure.
So it's quite a big problem.
And I mean, this also then fits into the ability of companies to deal with monies being moved, illicit financial flows, monies being used to fund terror. And South Africa's got quite a robust financial regulation ecosystem. How well is it doing with regards to these proceeds coming from counterfeit goods, often ending up funding terror?
Yeah, so I have not done a lot of studies in that particular field, but I would imagine that with counterfeit, obviously, this is their way of laundering money. This is their way of cleaning money, because they could have a shop that is just used as a conduit for bigger crimes.
So what do you do if you find yourself either hearing about counterfeit goods, pirated goods, or if you've been sold pirated goods? What is the best course of action? Do I go to the SAPS?
You can indeed go to the SAPS. The Act, in the manner that it has been drafted, makes provision for anyone to lay a complaint against a counterfeiter. The alternative, of course, is to approach a law firm. They are, IP law firm, and discuss with the law firm about the best route, to take this matter up. We have in the past received complaints directly from consumers, which we reported to our clients, received instructions from them to, go against the counterfeiters.
Paul, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We appreciate your time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
That's Paul Ramara, partner at Spur & Fisher Attorneys.
You only really have 40 business hours a week to build your business. How many will you waste on a call or in a queue giving notice to withdraw on your investment? With the FNB banking app, you're in control to manage your investments and submit instructions. Download our app and switch to SA's best business bank. FNB is a division of First Rand Bank Limited and authorized FSP. T's and C's apply.